So, hey guys, what's up? I have Kishan with me today. So, Kishan is the CEO of UXCam. UXCam helps companies truly understand how user experience their product, enabling companies to build products with empathy. So, hey Kishan, welcome on the podcast.
Hey Sunil, thanks for having me today.
Awesome. So, Kishan, let's start with understanding like what is user onboarding first.
Sure. So, thanks again for having me, and super excited to talk about user onboarding today. User onboarding is a continuous process of getting your user to the aha moment of your product. So what that means is that what's an aha moment is basically actually getting the users to a stage where they can find value with your product quickly. And it's a continuous process where you're really helping your customers or your users to understand how your product works, where they're getting value each time of the usage of the product. Yeah.
And like what does a typical user onboarding funnel looks like? Like what are the stages in the onboarding funnel?
Sure. Yeah. So as we mentioned, as we briefly said, right? So getting users to the aha moment. So there is a lot about educating the user on how the product works, and the typical onboarding funnel in terms of how we educate the user could be done in a few different ways. So typically, it's generally done in three different ways. It's either benefit oriented, so where you're really talking to the users and enabling and sort of showing the benefits of your product. So this is one. The second one is mostly you are showing the functionality of the product itself. So this is called the functional oriented onboarding, and the third one is progressive oriented. So benefit oriented, functional oriented, or progressive oriented. So three type of onboarding funnel. And on the progressive oriented, you're really kind of showing the value of your product in instead of showing it completely in one go, you're showing it to them in multiple different stages. So in terms of really building out the funnel, it really depends on the company itself. So what you're offering and kind of that defines how you are building this funnel. So for example, if the way one would start is you would map out the customer journey and really see what are the different touch points where you can either provide the benefits or the functional or show the functionality of your product. So in case of, for example, in case of a social network, for example, this could be where the customer comes into the page, signs up. So this would be first part of the funnel. The second would be the welcome screen. The third would be connecting to connecting with their colleagues, etc. The fourth would be messaging. So in these various steps, how do you provide different? How do you enable the customer to understand the various aha moment of your product? So this is how you would typically build an onboarding funnel.
Totally. I first read about the aha moment in Sean Ellis's book Hacking Growth, and when I read about it, so it makes more sense. Obviously, when a new user is signing up on a product, so you should guide them exactly on the path where, like for example, path to conversion, something like that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, exactly right. Yeah. So every time a user is kind of coming to a product, I mean, they don't really know. It's the first time they're interacting with something, and it's hard. It's kind of you're moving to a new country and you don't really know how to kind of do it, and it's the aha moment. The way I see it is for the company to really enable them to show how to use the product and kind of make the transition super easy for them.
Totally. And so you just mentioned like there are three steps or three ways onboarding funnel can look like, which is like first is benefits oriented, second is functional oriented, and third is progressive oriented. So can you give like an in short, can you give like a one example for each of these three things?
Yes. So in terms of when you're showing the benefit, so let's start with the first one, the benefit oriented. So at this point, when you are signing up for a certain app or certain product, instead of actually showing what the product feature does, you're really showing what's the benefit that you would be able to get out of the product. So take, for example, Evernote. So Evernote, for example, we would, in this app, when you sign up for the product, you would basically see a screen where it actually says you can really organize your life better in a way. I mean, obviously they say it in a different way, but kind of like rather than talking about where you can create to-do lists or memos, etc. It really talks more about organizing your day-to-day life. So it's and the first interactions are really geared towards what's the benefit that you would get out of the product when you use it. So this would be an example of benefit oriented onboarding. Let's see. I'm trying to think about the function oriented onboarding now. Yeah.
Okay. No, take your time.
So in terms of the function oriented onboarding, if we look at some of the checklists app, for example, when you sign up for the product, they literally kind of show you on how to use certain functionality. So when you log into the app for the first time, it basically highlights one of the part of the app, which is basically the plus sign, and really tells you like, hey, if you click on this, you can create a new checklist. And this is really kind of instead of talking about more on the benefit, it's showing you the exact functionality of the app. So this would be an example of a functional oriented onboarding.
Totally. So just like showing like a walkthrough to a new user who has signed up and to do XYZ things in your product.
Exactly. Yeah. And finally, the progressive onboarding is it's really about kind of rather than showing all the features in a go, you're really breaking it down into multiple parts. And as customer progresses through your app, you're really onboarding them a step at a time. So that would be an example of progressive onboarding.
Okay, cool. And so, like, what are some of the best practices that SaaS business should follow while making an onboarding funnel? Like, are there any benchmarks or are there any like this like what are the best practices?
Yeah. Definitely, we can let's talk about a few of the best practices. I think the main thing is, although that the first of all, we should really experiment on these experiment as well. And it's while one of the best practices may work for a certain company, it may not work for others. So it's definitely a lot of experimentation required. But there are a few things that I think just generally applicable for most of the companies. So to start off with, first of all, I would say one of the best practices that I really encourage companies to try out is removing the barriers to try the product. So what that means
Okay.
is when you sign up for a product, when you first download an app, for example, or when you first come to a website, is the asking yourself the question like whether the sign up process is actually necessary for me, for my customers to try out the product or not. Or whether as soon as I launch the app, whether I should ask for a permission for the camera, for example. So really being able to kind of removing this barrier where somebody who signs up for the product, they can literally start trying it out and removing this barrier as much as possible. So this would be the first one I would say. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I accept that, but now currently, what's happening in the world is, for example, when you sign up, when you download an app on your iOS device, and it wants to access your camera, so there's this small pop-up which shows like, do you want to allow this app to use your camera or not? So I think it gives user a choice to maybe allow or maybe not allow uh, the app to access the camera. But it for I would say for some users it's an annoying thing, but for some it's really like a privacy thing that they don't want an app to use their camera and something. So majorly it's a privacy issue. Other than that, if you remove the privacy part, then obviously it's going to improve the user.
Yeah. But I think the key question is like whether it's absolutely necessary, right? Or as well, like right when you launch the app. I mean, this is something. So, for example, let's say, for example, the Evernote app. They don't ask for the camera permission until you actually want to kind of take a snapshot of something of a page, or if you want to take a photo or something. So they really move this hurdle towards the super end, towards the end of towards when you actually need it, instead of actually asking it right away in the beginning.
Totally. Being contextual, I think, helps in improving user experience.
Definitely, yeah. And I was going to just add also the example of Quora as well, right? So when you sign up for Quora, they really instead of kind of sign up for it, you really get to browse it, and once you kind of browse it a bit for few articles, that's when the sign up process comes in. So you still get to they remove the barrier of trying the product, and you still get to experience the product first before asking any commitment from the user. So it's going to add this example that
Yeah, awesome. So that brings me to my last question. Like, in your experience, which SaaS provided you the best onboarding?
Yeah. So the three favorite ones I would say is Basecamp, Mailchimp, Duolingo. But I'll tell you. But
Awesome.
I right now I'm using Duolingo a lot because I recently moved to Germany and I'm learning the new language, and I really love their onboarding experience.
Awesome.
I mean, for Duolingo, I really like is like comes back to the point we're talking about, like in order to try the app, there is no sign up necessary, and they really design it where it's really minimal, and it kind of shows you the progress as well and where you are. And I really love the notification on how they send the notifications as well. So it's they ask you, for example, when you're signing up, they ask you how long do you want to spend, and whether you want to be advanced or whether you want to, how long can you spend per day, and based on that they send you notification. And also it's done in a really good way where they connect multiple platforms. Like even if you sign up from your web and from your mobile, they connect all the different platforms quite well.
Right. Yeah. So I have also signed up for Duolingo long back, and they have had this practice since long, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one other SaaS for which I like their onboarding experience is HubSpot. So it's like a complex tool, but for them, they have it's very simplified their onboarding process. Like when you sign up and enter all the details, so they have something like an onboarding page, and where you have to do these 10 tasks first to set up your CRMs and something like that. And then in those tasks, they have tutorials, they have some link to articles, and they have some like just like walkthroughs and something like that. So it helps user onboard on WhatsApp, on sorry
Right.
HubSpot very fast.
Yeah. No, totally. And the task list,
Awesome.
it's interesting. The task list are actually makes you kind of, so for example, Quora also does something similar where when you sign up, two or three of the checklist is already marked as done. And then there's like five that's left and you almost tend to, I want to complete this, right? So it's a really interesting tactics as well, really.
Awesome. So that's it. So thanks for your time, Kishan. If any one of you wants to get in touch with Kishan, so I'll add his LinkedIn URL in the description below, and you can check out his website UXCam, which is uxcam.com.
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Sunil. It was a pleasure speaking.